Good morning, School District of Indian River County. This is your Superintendent, Dr. Moore, here with a Facebook Live update as we prepare to open up schools for the 2021 school year. So there's a lot of information that we will be covering in the midst of this presentation. So as we review the presentation, I would encourage you to take notes. This is an opportunity of providing feedback to you based on a presentation we provided last week. So to go backwards before we go forward, we had the opportunity to provide a presentation to you regarding 3 options of returning to school. The intent of that presentation was to seek input and feedback from you. Today's purpose is to provide additional information based on what we have learned from you to answer questions that were posed by you over the course of last week. This is a fluid situation and it continues to change and develop as we move through the reality. So we will provide answers as we have them today with the understanding as we continue to move through this new normal, reality continues to change. Our commitment to you in providing this information is to keep you informed, to be transparent as we problem solve through a very complex time. So let's look at some of the areas in which we're looking at today. We're going to quickly share the survey results from last week. We're going to look at our instructional models once again. We're going to look at some safety measures that we have in place and continue to develop. More information is being asked regarding transportation. We'll be able to provide that information. Education and training. As we develop a new way of work, a new way of teaching and learning, we want to take a deep dive on how we're going to train and educate our staff, our families, as well as our students. How we're doing employee considerations. There's a number of conversations that we are having now and will continue to have with our employees to ensure we fully understand and are connected as we develop this new way of work. Information regarding gatherings, visits, events, sickness before, during, and after, what protocols are in place in order to ensure we all understand those systems. And then communication and messaging, how we're going to continue to communicate and engage one another as we move through this process. And then finally, the selection of the instructional model, which is what we'll talk about at the end of this presentation. So first, let's look at the survey results. You see here 4,472 individuals responded to our survey that we pushed out last week. 3,319 were parents of students in our schools. 770 were employees within our district. Now, when you look at those individual results, you'll see 52% selected option 1, which is the traditional reopening brick and mortar environment within our schools with the newly developed health and safety precautions in place. 18% selected the Indian River Virtual School, which is a virtual platform, and we know we need to go into a little bit more detail as to exactly what that means, and we'll do so in the coming slides. And then 18%, equally distributed, selected that transitional distance learning model. Once again, we'll go into a little bit more detail as to what that traditional model looks like. You'll see here 61% of the families who chose the Indian River Virtual are comfortable with making a semester commitment. 65% who selected the transitional model were comfortable with the 9-week commitment, and 56% of the respondents are comfortable with the current safety measures we have in place. And that 56 is concerning to us. And to be transparent, we need to continue to work through, develop, and inform our teachers, our community, as to what those measures are, how we will all be trained in order to ensure a feasible, safe reopening of school. One thing we want to communicate to our community is the length of stay, whether it be in the semester Indian River Virtual Program, option 2, or the transitional model, option 3, for 9 weeks. We will remain fluid in evaluating the reality of the current time and make decisions moving forward. So at the end of the first 9 weeks, if the spread and percent positive continues on its current track, we will be flexible and we will allow or extend the guarantee that you have your seat still available to you at your magnet or choice option. So a lot of parents were concerned, will I lose my seat after that hard break of a 9-week or 18 weeks And our commitment to you is if you're in that transitional model and the reality hasn't shifted and there is still a moderate to high risk of exposure, then we will honor and extend that seat for you at your traditional school or your choice or magnet school. Now, we want to quickly look at our three options and just kind of review what those three options are. So in the coming slides, we will talk about where and how we're operating those models and some of the information that we have learned as we have listened to you over the course of the last week. So let's look in option one. Option one is the traditional return to school. And I'll walk you through this slide because there's a lot of arrows and boxes on this chart, so let's just take a little bit of time to digest it. This is a traditional model. Instructional model is brick and mortar, the movement from class to class, assigned teachers. Regular school schedules and transportation all provided in a low or moderate situation. We also believe as there is a moderate spread or exposure to COVID-19 with the modifications that we have in place, we will be able to provide meaningful instruction within the brick and mortar. Of course, there will be altered use of school campuses, safety space, procedures, all identified, and modifications for school transportation within that umbrella, and that is where we believe we currently reside. If we get to a substantial spread and the situation continues to worsen, then we would in fact not have option one available. This is a process where safety first, health of our faculty, staff, and students first. So you'll see here in option one, we believe obviously when there's low or no spread, that works. Moderate spread with the conditions that we have continued to create and have already created, we believe this works. But if it continues to worsen, percents go up and positive, we know we will have to rely heavily on option two and option three. So you see here, option one, with those provisions in place, we feel we will be able to open schools, keep children, faculty, and staff safe if this is the model in which is selected. In looking at option two, this is a virtual learning experience. Option two. It is important to note within this model, obviously it works for all three rates of exposure, if you will. It is a virtual learning platform, so the instruction is driven by the platform. We do have local teachers who will be here locally to support and facilitate when there is a need to connect with a person, a true teacher, and that is an advantage. So you look at other virtual programs around the state, and I think the question you need to ask yourself is, who do I want supporting me? Someone who could be somewhere else throughout the state, who have to be dependent upon electronic communication, or someone I may possibly know, someone who understands Indian River County, understands our community, and is able to provide that direct support. So I think that is a very important decision to consider, that in our virtual program, this will be facilitated by our local teachers. And it is very, very important that you consider that when making a virtual decision regarding that environment. It is also important to note, if you plan on transitioning back, this is at the student's pacing. So if you are one of those individuals who say, you know what, I think we're going to hold down for the first semester, it's important to note that you keep up with the pacing of the particular course, not fall behind, because you want to transition back in a smooth process. The brick and mortar curriculum alignment will not 100% align to the virtual pacing, because this pacing is defined by the parent and the family, not necessarily the day of the week as a typical brick and mortar response. So that is option two. And then when you look at option three, some additional information regarding that. This is a model where the intent is to transition back into the regular school. So as we have previously communicated, this is an opportunity to spend 9 weeks as COVID continues to run its course, which is a very, very long course that it's running. but your level of security and safety as it relates to option 1 is not where you would like it to be, this is an option for you. You do note here this is a 9-week commitment, so at the end of the first 9 weeks would be a transition opportunity back. Situation hasn't improved. Obviously, as already communicated, we continue that option. This is not an option for voluntary pre-K due to state regulations. Assigned teachers may change when transition back to the brick and mortar setting. So dependent upon the number of students that apply will be how we define the actual model. Our goal is to keep teachers local at your school sites as best we can, but we want to be transparent based on numbers. The delivery model will shift from school to school, but it will still be a local teacher. A secondary level courses, not all electives will be offered. We will be able to offer core electives to meet graduation requirements. But when you look at the logistics of offering every single elective, it becomes a daunting task to do. So in this selection model, you will be communicated by the school to select the electives that are available to move your student through the first 9 weeks. This is a time-based program. Classes will take place. Technology will be provided. When classes start, they will start at the assigned time. Teachers will be able to provide their instruction to that particular class. This is the teacher providing the lecture or the lesson to students who have the opportunity to view them and then do the class assignment with the rest of the classmates while at home. This will not be a blended model, meaning that in the environment, the teacher is teaching both live students as well as students at virtual. So the entire class will be virtual. That will make it a little easier for our teacher really to design lessons and be able to facilitate an online platform versus jumping back and forth. And that is a commitment that we want to make to our teachers. So now let's look at some of our student and safety measures. Sanitation procedures, preventative measures, wellness screening for students and staff, social distancing measures, modified use of space, health safety protocols. We know we have these things in place and we want to continue to communicate them as we move through. Ongoing sanitation of common spaces, shared materials, and high-touch areas, as well as recommended use of masks and staff and students. So highly recommended that we have masks, especially upon entering, moving throughout the hallways, especially in our secondary spaces. But while in that flexible space within the classroom, we think that we'll have social distancing in place, which should not require the mask. Altered procedures for routine school exchange processes, paying for lunches, checkout of media materials, and transition of electronic devices. Safety measures are in place within each of those areas. Daily temperature and system screenings for all students and staff with pre-identified quarantine areas and protocols for individuals identified with symptoms. So each school has a very specific protocol that they are developing, and they will be able to communicate to you in the coming weeks. Modified use of space to minimize individuals in common spaces and maximizing social distancing during daily schedules and transportation processes. So clearly defined systems in place to keep us separated and keep us healthy. Ongoing consultation with the Department of Health and school health officials related to verified cases, contact tracing, and appropriate responses. So very clearly defined protocols and relationships that we are creating with our health department as a case is identified. This is the system that we will take. This is how we will notify individuals regarding the need to isolate over the course of 14 days, both for our faculty as well for our students. Looking at bus transportation, we will continue provisions for additional bus stops and bus depots, so that will continue. Slightly altered route times based upon bus stop location and bus routes. What that means is the time that you had last year may vary from the time that you have this year. So it is altered from one year to the next, but we don't anticipate a number of changes. But as we plan to create our routes, we need that information and be transparent that times may actually change in comparison to last year. Increased sanitation protocols, mandatory wearing of masks for drivers, bus aides, and bus riders, accommodation for students with disabilities and students with medical conditions will be honored with appropriate documentation. So we will problem solve with you as parents around your level of comfort regarding the unique needs of your children. We have already communicated we have decreased maximum riders per bus, altered assigned seating assignments to maximize social distancing and contact tracing. Siblings may be seated together. So on the bus itself, we will space students out with the opportunity to connect siblings who live in the same house. And we will make ongoing transportation modifications based upon COVID-19 spread. So one of the information we will be seeking from you today is, if you are returning to the brick and mortar experience, do you plan on using our transportation? That is information that will allow us to create and finalize our routes. In some cases, we'll have one route, but based on the number of children who are on that route, it may be a split route, meaning the route is one route, but at a certain point in time, the bus driver will communicate, I am now going to exceed the required maximum, and another bus driver who is stationed in another location will pick up the rest of the route to keep our students socially distanced and minimize the exposure on buses. This is a very important slide, and it's a slide that is going to continue to grow. And it speaks through the training that we are going to provide across all constituents within our school system. Universal training of staff and safety protocols and procedures, and you'll see at the bottom, July 27th through July 21st, an intentional identified week where training will take place as close to the opening of schools as possible to ensure that we're prepared for what that reality is going to be. Universal training for students and safety protocols and procedures. We're not quickly trying to rush to get back to school. We want to take the time from August 10th to August 21st. You'll see that is the first 2 weeks of school. We want to be intentional of allowing students the opportunity, A, to come back and feel comfortable, to feel safe, welcomed and loved in our learning spaces, feel as if that is their space, an extension of your home. We need to be intentional around that work. But at the same time, we need to create new conditions as we move from class to class, as we use instructional technology and resources in the room, and to superficially run over those procedures that are brand new would result in an ineffective implementation. So you can anticipate a shortened school day where we're being intentional over the course of the first week, maybe even two, really to dig in with our teachers and our students to create conditions and protocols that ensure that we're all on the same page in implementing those systems. So we will be intentional and not wash over or quickly brush over these new systems and procedures. We will inform our students, and we will help create those behaviors over the course of the first 2 weeks to ensure we're maximizing safe and health in our schools. We want to ensure that we're connecting with our parents on all of these safety procedures and protocols. So if you see in the bottom of the screen, August 3rd through August 7th, multiple opportunities both in schoolhouses as well as virtually for you to connect with your principal and leadership team to hear from them on how this will be done at their particular school, to give you a level of comfort that this in fact can be done. So please, those will be afternoon workshops and evening presentations both in the schoolhouses as well as virtually for you to create and understand that information. And then August 3rd through August 7th, educator and parent training for distance learning. So if you selected option 2 or 3, we still want to be very intentional of making sure you fully understand what is expected within those options as a parent. So this slide really talks through the amount of teaching and learning as it relates to this new reality to ensure when we effectively launch, we do it with success and we do it with a level of comfort across our entire county. So this is very, very meaningful. Please mark your calendars. And as we end this presentation, I'll go over some additional opportunities to listen and learn. Employee considerations. As you see here, employee and safety and job security is an ongoing priority for our school district. Standardized request procedures for employees' accommodations for health-related concerns related to COVID-19 have been developed by the district. We will begin pushing that information out under the leadership of Mr. Scott Bass, our Deputy Superintendent, Office of Human Capital and School Operations. Will provide that information to our teachers as it relates to the very specific procedures associated with COVID-19 and the appropriate steps to take based on that individual, that employee's reality. So there are processes and procedures in place, and we're looking forward to communicating and working with all of our staff members, our family members, to ensure that we're providing meaningful experiences, and health and safety is a priority for us as a member of our family. When you look at gatherings during the first 9 weeks, essential visitors obviously will be extremely limited as best we possibly can. Parent visits for lunch and other purposes will be discontinued until we have COVID in a place that we feel comfortable. All essential visitors will receive health screenings prior to entering our campuses. So we have created processes and procedures to be intentional regarding who is coming into our schools to minimize exposure and reduce density. Field trips will not be taking place for the first 9 weeks until we have these systems created and fully implemented, and I assure you this isn't something we want to do, and we're looking forward to bringing our classrooms out into the community and expanding those trips and experiences for our students. So it isn't something that we're walking away from. Right now our focus is getting us back to school in a health and safety way, and then we will problem solve around how we open up our community to field trips in a very, very safe way. Extracurricular activities will take place according to very stringent revised health and safety protocols. So we'll continue to work with FHSAA regarding the restrictions and protocols they have established, as well as our own, to ensure our athletes, our student advisors, and those participating in activities are doing so in a meaningful and healthy way. And then the gatherings of 50 will be scheduled in consultation with the Department of Health. Once again, we have campuses that are very large, and we'll be able to honor and maximize those spaces through some unique scheduling to continue to have the run of the school day and opportunities for students to be exposed to those rich and meaningful traditions that are provided within all of our schools. When you look at CDC guidelines, local health department recommendations, school district health officials, we continue to create procedures that will ensure that when a student tests positive or when a faculty or staff tests positive, it's not when, it's not if, it is when, and we understand that. So prior to the opening of school, we will have clearly developed what those systems are, informed and trained, as mentioned earlier, on what those procedures are. We'll cover that information with students as they return to school in an age-appropriate way. But when you look at this screen that's in front of you now, we have individuals will be sent to the health room. Upon entering the health room, the identified individual will be given a mask to wear. Temperature and symptom checks will be completed by the health assistant. Designated contacts will be informed of needing to pick up the student from school. Health assistant will follow up the Department of Health for guidelines and reporting as it relates to contact tracing. And we will follow up actions will be implemented according to the CDC and Department of Health recommendations. Custodians will disinfect and sanitize all potentially affected areas related to each identified case. So even as cases are potential, we will be vigilant in our cleaning process, but once it has been confirmed, a very rigid protocol that is in place. We have covered a great deal of information today, and it isn't complete information, or isn't information that means that we're done having the conversation by any means. So on the screen here, you have a number of telephone numbers that you can use to contact individuals in our school system who are here to support and help you. So this presentation will be posted on our webpage as soon as we complete it, so you can reference these numbers. This information will be pulled from the PowerPoint and also be available to you. So as you're problem solving with your family regarding the access to the school district of Indian River County and how we are preparing to greet and educate your children on August 10th, I would encourage you to call specific numbers to get specific information to provide that information to you in a timely manner. So here's what we would like you to do over the course of the next week. We would like for each family to complete on focus a survey that identifies where you are as it relates to option 1, 2, or 3. And then selecting that particular option so we can work with our teachers, work with our principals to create an experience on August 10th that ensures that we are ready. So the quicker we have this information, obviously the better, with the same time acknowledging the situation continues to shift and modify. So here is the screen on focus that you would go to. Well, how do you get to focus? Go to our web page, and you see the arrow that's pointing to add student or register for focus account. To log on to the Focus Parent Portal. If you have not already registered, this is where you would begin that particular process. Once again, this information will be on our web page. This is some information you'll need, so even prior to logging on, you'll need the last 4 digits of your son or daughter's Social Security, their student ID. They know their student ID, as well as their birthday. We know you know that. Click on that. That will allow you to register your account and take you back to the screen that you see here, in which you would complete that information. I would encourage you over the course of the week to look at and contact your schools if you have questions and concerns regarding the return to school or option 2 or option 3. Hearing from me is one thing, but having the opportunity to sit with an individual at the school, whether it be your principal or whether it be a school counselor, really will allow you to get your answers at a very, very specific situation in which you can see firsthand the steps and protocols that we are establishing as a community. I do believe additional information is needed as we prepare to open schools. My team, along with principals, will continue to create information and protocols and systems as to the structures in place at the confines of a school day. On July 10th, we want to share that information with you prior to you making that final decision. So July 10th is a day in which we want to have you identify the option. But prior to finalizing that option, we believe we can do a better job of informing you of the safety protocols, the modifications of the schedule. Well, what does that look like? Lunch, well, what does that look like? Arrival and dismissal, what does that look like? The change of class, what does that look like? We have been effective in communicating that we are making those modifications and those adjustments, but let's be a little bit more intentional in regards to how that actually looks to give you that information so you can make an informed decision for you. So if anything that I have presented today does not give you ease in making a selection, I would encourage you to pay attention next Friday, July 10th at 11:30. July 10th will be a very busy day, but we're committed to being in service of support of our community. 11:30 with a focus being on safety, cleaning, and school site modifications to keep our community informed. With that, a lot of information being shared. Just to summarize, please digest this information. Speak with your students to make a choice that is best for you as a family member. We will be back on Friday, July 10th at 11:30. In the meantime, if you have additional questions or concerns, I would encourage you to reach out to your school. Our principals are in service of you to provide you with as much information as possible so you can make a decision that is right for you, right for your child, and right for the school district of Indian River County. So with that, thank you so much for taking this time with me this morning. Thank you. Have a great day.